On today's show, the San Diego Padres win their third game in a row, and this time on a walk-off against the Cincinnati Reds. Are the vibes officially starting to come back for this Padres team? That is the question.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Tuesday, September 9th. As always, I'm your host with sometimes the most, Javier Reyes, and I've been covering this team for nearly 6 years now, not just for this podcast, but also various other outlets, including JustBaseball.com, chief among them. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Today's show, we are going to be talking, giving a little bit of thoughts, breaking down the big picture from last night's walk-off win that the Padres had in their first game against the Reds. One of the teams that is allegedly threatening for one of those last wildcard spots, right? Them and the Giants, both. But obviously, ever since the weekend series win, it's looked a little bit more calmer for the Padres, but still some really cool takeaways here. Plus, a listener question about catching. Is Freddie Fermin secretly the problem with why the Padres haven't been getting quality starts? We'll be answering some listener questions in that regard. And feel free, everybody, to go reach out Locked On Padres on YouTube to send in some of your questions or comments, and I will be sure to check them out and potentially talk about them on this show. Let's get into it, though, guys. The Padres win yesterday's game by a score of 4-3, and here's the thing, Daddy-O. Here's the thing. We got to talk about Yu Darvish first. I understand it was a walk-off. I understand. I'm fully aware. It was great. We love a good walk-off. We love that the bullpen was awesome, but I want to start with Yu Darvish, who in this game goes 5 2/3, allowing 3 runs on 6 hits, but didn't walk anybody and did strike out 7. Now, here's the thing. Decent lineup that they got over there in Cincinnati. Guys like Austin Hayes, Ellie De La Cruz, Noel V. Marte has been actually having some moments for them. Ke'Bryan Hayes, believe it or not, who's never hit well before, has actually been pretty good for the Reds ever since the deadline, which is really, really funny because for those who follow baseball deeply, Ke'Bryan Hayes has been one of those prospects that just didn't pan out as much as people would have liked, and he's not a terrible player, but 740 OPS in August, 928 through 7 games in September. He'd been a little bit hot for the Reds, but thankfully Darvish at least did enough, right? He did give up a couple big hits, TJ Friedl and Austin Hayes. TJ Friedl to start off the game. It's like the first batter, if I'm not mistaken, of the game. 2 for 5 game for him on the night with a stolen base as well. But I just liked seeing a decent start, right? This is officially now the longest that a non-Nick Pivetta starter has gone since August 24th. This is one of the longest. It was Randy Vasquez this weekend when he went 6. My apologies. The Randy revolution. I apologize to the Randy brigade. Okay, my apologies. I totally forgot about him for a second. But aside from those two guys, it's been very inconsistent with the starting pitching, from Cortez to Dylan Cease to JP Sears to all these guys, right? It's been really, really rough to even Yu Darvish. And I thought he looked okay. It was a little bit uneven in terms of his repertoire, in my opinion. But what I really liked is that some pitches worked, others didn't necessarily. I think that his cutter wasn't working all that much. 11 swings, only 1 whiff, and an average exit velocity of 106 off those things. They killed him, right? But his slider, no one was really hitting it. The fastball, straight up, nobody was hitting it. The sinker, some decent contact by the Reds on that one. The curveball, not as much, right? He was getting a lot of swings and misses on the pitches that he needed to get swings and misses on, which is cool. The sweeper was working. And with a pitcher like Darvish, even if some of his pitches aren't working, it's not like an overall indictment on him or his performance because he has so many that he can utilize. He changes his kind of thing every now and then. The fastball was his 5th most used pitch. Right, he actually used the sinker the most last night. And while I had some issues with it, I did think that there were a couple opportunities that he missed on. He really hung some of those pitches, especially to the TJ Friedl home run, as you saw, which is just what's going to happen with a sinker, and especially with a curveball can happen sometimes when you hang it up in that zone to decent, hitters in this, frankly, any hitter in this sport. But overall, I liked what I saw. I just liked that he went 5 2/3. You know what I mean? And that's just so big for this team right now. To just get anything remotely interesting out of their starting pitching is a huge plus. Now, we'll have to see if we get more from Darvish, right? Because he still has a 5.65 ERA this year, right? So he's not officially back yet. or anything like that, right? We can't say that. And he got lit up by the Orioles pretty badly. He had a bad start against the Mariners. So while I am optimistic that he can change it around, I just like that against the Reds, he did wonders, right? And one of the things I've been talking about over the last week is this next month, now that it looks like the danger zone for the Padres has been escaped. And what I mean by that is there was a vibe when they got swept by the Twins, when they did really horribly against the Orioles, that it was like, oh no, if they don't play well against the Rockies, and if they don't play well against the Reds, they're in danger potentially falling out of the playoffs. But it seems like that concern has been kind of thrown out. I think we're good on that front now, especially with the wins against Colorado. You've got 3 in a row. The team's been hitting a little bit better. But it is still a question, I think, the starting rotation, right? This is a team that basically, as of right now, unless Joe Musgrove makes a recovery, and I haven't heard anything yet on that front, unless he makes like an expeditious recovery in time for October, and maybe he makes an appearance there at the beginning of the year. There was reports that he was going to try and, make his rehab so that he could be available in the playoffs. You're basically looking at a rotation that's like, all right, we have Nick Pivetta, and then it gets scary after that, right? We're hopefully going to have Michael King in tomorrow's start, I believe. He'll be returning from the IL to start against the Reds, so that will obviously be a huge start that I can't wait for, and we will cover it on the show. Let's say it goes well. So that gives you Pivetta and Michael King. The big question is going to be, in terms of playoffs, who's going to be the third starter? The big question in general for the Padres, if they wanted to win the division, is going to be, can they get consistent outings from all their starting pitching? But in terms of just the playoffs, we're going to have to see if that number 3 can emerge. Can Dylan Cease have a final last good month? Some people might say, myself included, hey, well, Blake Snell stunk his first year with the Padres, and then he turned it around the second half. But that was the whole second half. Dylan Cease has not shown any signs lately, and he hasn't been a very good pitcher. And as we talked about recently, if everyone's going to defend Arraez in my comments sometimes, and, ignore everything else that he's bad at, well, that's kind of like saying we're going to ignore everything else that Dylan Cease is bad at just because he's one of the best strikeout pitchers in baseball. So remains to be seen how that's going to go, but it gave me hope. I like that we're finally getting some quality starts from the Padres starting pitching that isn't Nick Pivetta, because it was really starting to get concerning, especially with Jason Adam injured now. So this is a big question for the Padres. Who's going to be their number 3 in the playoffs? You usually need around 3 quality guys that you can trust, especially with this bullpen, right? In theory, even without Jason Adam, they could still be dominant. Because again, I think Wandy Peralta has been underrated. You still have someone like David Morgan, and then you've got Estrada, you've got Robert Suarez, right? And they performed admirably last night as well. But can they get over the finish line? Can they win the division and get that first round bye? Something that they haven't done in forever, frankly. Genuinely, I don't even remember the last time they won the division. Was it the late 90s? Oh my God, it might have been. Ugh. Oh my gosh, that's not great. But we'll see if they can break that curse once and for all. But first, guys, I need to talk to you about one of our sponsors, and that is our friends over at the Time of Games, Game Time. Ladies and gentlemen, there's nothing like catching a baseball game live. The energy, the crowd, the chance to see your team in person. But actually getting the tickets, it can be a little bit tough sometimes. We all know that. The queues, the login screens, the random fees that take your price up by $700. I'm exaggerating, but you get my point. It feels like $700 sometimes, let me tell you. But that's why I use Game Time, the app that gives you the advantage. You, the fan, the advantage all the time. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is actually the price that you pay. It's faster, cheaper, less stressful than any other way I've bought tickets. I love zone deals. Pick the zone, a section. They pick the seat from that section, you get a discount. It's awesome, guys. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 up. Swipe, tap, ticket, and go download Game Time today. And just like that, everybody, we're back here on the Locked On Padres podcast, thriving and vibing. As well with it all. Usually I say despite it all because of how poorly the Padres have been playing lately, but let's continue with the game recap. Also, bullpen was great. They had to kind of use a lot of people in this one. And I liked what Schilt did, and he's not going to get a lot of credit, especially from people who love only jumping on managers just because they have that. People love jumping on managers for the one game that they might have mismanaged their bullpen, and then they ignore all the 7 other times during the week that they were fine, right? Alec Jacob, he comes in and gets an out. Jeremiah Estrada gets 2 outs with 2 strikeouts as well. Monahan for 1 out. Mason Miller goes an inning and 2 strikeouts, and of course, I want you to guess how good he looked. Do I even have to you guys don't even have to watch the game. You know how great he was. And then Robert Suarez, a really clutch performance from him. 1 2/3 in this one with 2 strikeouts. We'll have to see if he's available, right? That's going to be a thing for him. But I suspect that the Padres are optimistic that he's going to be able to keep going. I do not believe that he pitched on Sunday, although I could be wrong. No, he did not pitch on Sunday. Okay. So he should be potentially available. But anyway, they have been. I think just it can't be emphasized enough how important it is that their starters go a little bit longer. But great bullpen management. I thought they used all of these guys really well. And the Padres offense, by the way, they were down 3-0 in the top of the 6th inning. And I've got Monday Night Football on my small screen, right, on my laptop at the time. And I have the Monday Night Football game on, and that game had a comeback win from behind, right, by the Vikings. Congratulations, Minnesota fans. You beat the Padres, and then you beat the Bears, so congratulations to you. But they were down 3-0, and you always like to see us. The Padres have been, while inconsistent at best when it comes to runners in scoring position this year, right, with, in my opinion, decisions with the lineup. I think that that's killing the team in a lot of ways with Arias batting second. But it's not just him. It's been in general the rest of the team. Jackson Merrill, Xander Bogaerts is out with an injury. Manny Machado has had a really bad last month. So that's been a question for them. But they have been decent at making comebacks because usually their pitching, and especially their bullpen, has been able to keep, they're never usually down by 7 or anything like that. And it's 3 against this Reds team. And while Nick Lodolo did do well against them, they're able to hit former pitcher Scott Barlow for 3 runs. And here's the thing. This is why it's so important to remember that baseball is a game of runs. I'm going to make a little bit of an analogy. For any NBA fans, you know how there's always it's part of the game that eventually the other team is just going to hit 2 threes and then make 2 jump shots, then you have to call timeout. That's part of the game. Football, it's not really part of the game to be up by 21 points and the other team will score 17. That's just part of it, right? In baseball, you're not supposed to be up 7-0 and then just you will give up 7, right? But more if it's that thing with basketball, but you extrapolate over the season. So what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is the Padres looked terrible last 2 weeks ago. Right? They've been terrible. Nobody could go any innings. We've talked about that a lot on the show and especially today. And they had things not going their way. Jackson Merrill has gotten pretty unlucky lately. Luis Ariz even, in one of his first games back after he took, not first games back, he only had 1 game off, but after his off day, comes back, rips a shot that just happens to go to the first baseman. Also, what happens in baseball is because there's so many dang games, especially for a team that's clearly a contending, decent team, you're going to have some stuff go your way. And that's what happened in this Reds game, right? You had Gavin Sheets. He rips a double, by the way. Never take this man out of the lineup. It actually annoys me when they do. 3 for 3 in this game with an RBI. Awesome stuff. Another double for him as well. And then after that, right? Jackson Merrill with a triple, and he needed that, but it was off the glove of the opposing player, or the outfielder for the Reds. So did they luck out on that? Sure, but I like that he got the bat on the ball. Absolutely love that. That was really, really important. And it still had an expected batting average of 470, so it wasn't totally luck, but it's just nice to see that the Padres had something go well for them, right? And in general, they hit the ball really hard yesterday. Fernando Tatis Jr., 105.6 off the bat, ground out. It turns out Machado, 105 off the bat with a 530 expected batting average. That was a ground out. Jose Iglesias, the second hardest hit ball of the game, 106.7. That was a ground out. So they get a little bit unlucky there, but it's just nice that the big hit, they did end up getting a triple here, and that's huge for Jackson Merrill, who I mentioned had a decent weekend, had its 3 for 5 game, and as well hit a home run this past weekend. 1 for 4 game with 2 RBIs from Jackson Merrill. I really do believe it's just about seeing something go through the hoop at this point for this Padres offense, particularly when it comes to Jackson Merrill, when it comes to Luis Ariz, those type of guys. You just need to see some hits fall. Manny Machado, just see some hits fall, get them back into the swing of things. And then what happens? We go to extra innings because of the tie, thankfully because of the Padres bullpen, and then Fernando Tatis Jr. hits a sacrifice fly, another walk-off for the boy. It's really funny that he only had, I remember earlier this year when he hit that walk-off against, oh God, I don't remember. Was it the Cardinals? I don't remember for sure who it was earlier this year. But it was funny when that happened that was actually his first career walk-off in San Diego or something like that. It's just really funny to note that Tatis hasn't hit as many walk-offs. He's just been amazing and clutch, but not as many walk-offs. It's just funny. But another one for him, the sac fly. He swings on a pitch inside, but I love that he did that because I think that lately, we've been talking a lot about Arise, and I'm going to continue talking about Arise as long as he continues to be, in my opinion, a problem in this lineup. Goes 0 for 4 last night as well. I think Tatis swung at a pitch just because he had decent look at it, and it was way inside, but he said, I need to put the ball in the air because Luis Arise, teams love walking him in order to face Arise. His walk rate doubles when runners are in scoring position, which to me, yes, it's a plus for Tatis that he's able to draw walks. He doesn't swing at bad pitches. But in my opinion, that also tells you if you're doubling your walk rate, not just like a 2% bump or 1%, 4% bump, you're doubling your walk rate to like 26%. That's pretty insane, and to me tells you that teams are just not afraid of Luis Arise right now. So I love that Tatis swung at a bad pitch. Still gets the sac fly. That's all they need. And don't get me wrong, they did get a little bit lucky. An errant throw allows, I believe it is Freddie Fermin to make it in the first place. Jake Cronenworth is able to get to third after the ball is mishandled. Love that. And then Tatis hits the sac fly off of Nick Martinez, by the way, former Padre. So both former Padres today being victims by the Padres, Emilio Pagan and Nick Martinez in this one. So really, really cool. I'm sorry, not Emilio Pagan, Scott Barlow in this game. Although Emilio Pagan did make an appearance, and he did actually unfortunately get the Padres pretty good, striking out Ryan O'Hearn, getting Cronenworth and Merrill to ground out. But all in all, nice win. But the big thing is going to be tomorrow, man. Or today, I guess. The big thing is going to be today's game. How's Michael King going to look? And it's going to be a tough matchup, right? They've got Zach Little pitching. Hasn't been too bad for the Reds. And again, that's still a team that's trying to make the playoffs. So it's going to be really, really important to see if they can make it into this one and just do a lot better and look like a good team again. Especially with this Rockies series coming up. Unfortunately, the Dodgers didn't win last night, so they didn't pick up any ground. But hey, they're facing the Rockies, so what can you expect? But we've got 4 more against the Rockies after this Reds series. I'm optimistic, man. I'm optimistic. I think that these last few games have just been, you know what, some things are going their way again, right? They weren't going to just have starters just refuse to go more than 3 innings for the rest of the season. That would have been pretty insane. And if Michael King comes back, I'm curious to see the pitch count. I'm curious to see how he is because remember, he didn't go long in his last start, and then he got, taken out. And what happens? He lands on the IL again. So I imagine they're going to be cautious, but I still want to see what does he have, and then especially just the rest of the season. Dare I say one of the biggest storylines for this Padres team will be, how does Michael King look? Can he get back to what he was before? Because on the season, while he hasn't always gone deep into games, I'm talking about even when he was healthy, 2.81 ERA. The guy's good and could potentially be a guy that the Padres are going to want to extend. So really curious to see how this pans out, and I'm really hopeful the Padres can get the W. But one thing you don't have to be hopeful about, you just know is going to be there for you, it's our friends over at Monarch Money. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Let me tell you about Monarch, man. When it comes to all of your financial accounts or, what they're worth, most people can't even name them, right? It's really tough, whether it's 401k, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. And that's where Monarch Money comes in. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, which I get, I do too, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever even looking at a spreadsheet. You know what I mean? That's what's great about Monarch Money. Go check it out, guys. Maximizing investments, increasing your savings rate, easily reviewing finances with your partner and or financial advisor, keeping a clear view of your financial health, setting goals, different investment allocation stuff, all different little insights on your insights and for your financials. It's going to be great, guys. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50%, half off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB. Go on and check it out. And just like that, everybody, we are back here thriving and vibing on the Locked On Padres podcast. I hope you are all doing well, just the same way the Padres seem to be doing well as of late. But not everything as well, at least according to one frequent commenter of this show. I thought it was an interesting question that we're going to talk about really quickly, and that is from the always illustrious Tony Sue, who says, first of all, he did also make a comment saying, Javi keeps trying to dump Luis Ariz again, enough said. And I'm like, I don't know what you mean by enough said. Like, is that like a gotcha? Javi thinks that bad player is bad. I got him, you know what I mean? But no, instead he makes a comment saying the following. I would like to make a suggestion about Cease for anybody who might be listening. Here is a stone that might not yet be overturned. And all last year, Luis Campusano caught Cease when he was pitching well. There's some familiarity between them. Call Campusano up, tell him to get with Cease, and if Campy can turn Cease around by doing things that worked last year, give him a spot on the active roster as Cease's personal catcher, even if for few other reasons. Campy might have some defensive deficiencies, but I doubt anything is that important compared to the need to try everything to get Cease right. If Cease agrees to this is a try that costs the Padres nothing, and time is running out. On regular rest, Cease has only 5 or 6 more starts the rest of this regular season. So there's a bunch of things here that I think is really, really important. First of all, Elias Diaz has been fine, right? Elias Diaz has been fine, and I noticed that this one listener has been having this conspiracy that Freddie Fermin is really bad at calling games. I think my issue with this is Dylan Cease has been bad all year, and a lot of the Padres starters, Nick Pivetta being excluded, obviously Michael King being excluded, and frankly, everybody else as well, because while yes, the Padres starting pitching has been not great recently, another part of that is the fact that they gave up 2 guys that were pitching really well in Steven Kolek and Ryan Berger. So I don't really think that there's a giant connection here. I think that the idea of a personal catcher is one of the most outdated, antiquated things that baseball fans think is that you should still do, right? Because I just think, why are we sacrificing for one pitcher for just to have one specific guy on the roster? The Padres did this with Victor Caratini a few years back, and Victor Caratini just wasn't cutting it, so they ended up being like, all right, and then they ended up moving on from him. And guess what? Yu Darvish had success without him, right? Victor Caratini was his personal catcher. And Yu Darvish looked just fine last year, and he looked just fine for the most part when he was healthy. In 2022, although he did have Caratini, I believe, that year. So don't get me wrong. I'm not like totally against the idea of like, let's try it, but I just don't like this idea of bringing up a guy that clearly, in my opinion, again, I joked on this podcast, the longtime everydayers of Locked On Padres will remember that I did the whole Campy Hive thing, and that I really did believe that they didn't give him a chance. I still kind of believe that. I think that they didn't develop him very well at all. It's like first time he's debuting was in the COVID season when he wasn't ready, and they're pinch hitting him to go up against Kenley Jansen, and it just felt very like the Padres sometimes are very sink or swim, I think, with their prospects. Sometimes, not all the time. They've got plenty of other guys that are in good positions to do well. But yeah, Jackson Merrill worked out, but they gave up on CJ Abrams pretty quickly, and he's been okay. Right? There's been guys that they've given up on and not given the best opportunity and be put in opportunity to succeed, other than if you're just a freak of nature like your Jackson Merrill types who could come up and could be great immediately. Fernando Tatis Jr. types, right? Come up and be great immediately. Even if you want to look at, I don't even know what another good example would be, but they've done this before with another player. I'm just forgetting who. But bottom line is, I just strongly disagree with the idea of bringing up Campusano, who, while I do defend my belief in they developed him wrong, I do not like how they used him. I don't think that the Padres, with Maldonado being worth negative WAR, right? Literally negative wins above replacement, letting the most pass balls get by him. Nobody has picked him up since he got cut, really, right? And the fact that he was striking out 38% of the time, and he was 40. I have to believe that even the Padres, a team that I do not trust when it comes to the position players that they sometimes have on this team, with the exception of last year, right? I don't really trust how they evaluate these guys sometimes. That even for them, I'm like, there must just be something really wrong with Campusano. Every time they call him up, no matter what he's doing in the minors, he always looks bad. He doesn't even have a hit this year, I'm pretty sure. And he was hitting nukes in AAA. In fact, he was hitting some of the highest and hardest hit balls in the entirety of minor league baseball. What happened when they called him up? 0 for 4, 3 strikeouts, 0 for 2, 2 strikeouts, 0 for 4, no strikeouts but no hits, right? Like, just he never showed up. And I think that with Campusano, we're talking about something that we need to move on from. And I don't like the idea that just because he did well last year means that this is like he'll fix him somehow. I think it's as simple as Dylan Cease has been a mess this year, and he's just really, really off. And this is a guy that relies on the fastball slider, and he's not locating it well. Maybe hitters just happen to be having a good year off him. This happens sometimes. Aaron Nola, I think, is the perfect comparison for Dylan Cease, right? Those guys have all the talent in the world. They can get strikeouts, and most importantly, they can throw a lot of innings, at least typically. But I just strongly disagree with that. And a commentator who was featured on yesterday's show actually responded to Tony going, I don't think pitchers make that big I don't think catchers make that big of a difference. Pitching is all about feel. It comes and goes. Good pitchers are consistent. Cease is not. He had one great year, but he just happened to have everything going for him that year. He is not a good pitcher. He's just a workhorse that can get you through the year. If a pitcher has one great year with 4 to 5 bad years, that doesn't make him a Cy caliber pitcher. He's an average pitcher. Bringing up Campy just for him is not going to change much. So I agree with one thing that you're saying, which is that the catching is probably not going to make a giant difference, especially when, at least with the peripherals and the usual analytics and just what I've seen, Fermin is a pretty solid defensive catcher. He's also very good at limiting runners from stealing, although he has sailed a couple throws, so some people might make fun of me for that comment. But I do disagree with the idea of Dylan Cease being a bad pitcher. And yes, don't get me wrong, he did have that one insane year with the White Sox, right, where he finished Cy Young 2.2 ERA in 2022. But he did then have, after that, a 4.5 on a very bad White Sox team, by the way. And he had a 3.91, which isn't terrible, especially given the strikeouts. Not amazing, but he is going to be a guy that gets you through the season, which I do agree with. And last year, 3.47 with a 3.1 FIP, by the way. Like, that is good. He is a good pitcher. Is he great, though? I don't know. I do agree with what you're saying, though, my friend, which is that I think a big part of his value is strikeouts, innings pitched. Since 2021, here is innings pitched every single year. 165, 184, 177, 189, and this year, 151. A number that he'll probably finish around the 170 maybe at best, right? He should get around that same mark again. It's consistency, and in Major League Baseball, you need that, right? And one thing that's happened with him this year, his home run rate really spiked. So it's possible that maybe that regresses to the mean next year, right? 1.19 home run per 9 rate this year. Last 3 years, 0.86, 0.97, 0.78. His big thing previously was walks and general hard hits. He's been giving up home runs at such an untimely rate that I can understand some optimism for him next year for teams that are just going to be like, you know what? He's not going to give up a home run every single time in the 4th inning, right? Right? So he still should be a top-level free agent that teams are going to be interested in, not the 7-year, $200 million guy that I think he was going to be heading into the season. But I think both of you make points. I don't hate the idea of maybe Dylan Cease, that a couple of changes can help, but what have we seen? Ruben Niebla, man. I think that matters infinitely more than catchers, and Ruben Niebla has turned a lot of pitchers, Kolek, Berger, Lugo, Waka, around. And then you look at the bullpen, David Morgan seemingly coming out of nowhere, Jeremiah Estrada seemingly coming out of nowhere. There's been a lot of pitchers for this team that have looked excellent. Michael King, although I think that he was, part of the Juan Soto trade, I think he had talent anyway. But you have him. You have Nick Pivetta rocking a sub-3 ERA. He was a 4 guy every year for his whole career. Like, Ruben Niebla not being able to fix Dylan Cease, I think, is a much bigger indictment on him, and it's something that is more points towards this just being an off year for Dylan Cease, rather than Campusano isn't catching for him. Did it throw him off a little bit? Maybe. That's entirely possible. But I will say, even if that were possibly true, Tony Sue, way too late in the season, in my opinion, to make that move. It's just too late. I'd like to try it, but this is a team and a managerial staff that literally has the worst OPS for a number 2 hitter for a playoff team in Major League Baseball, and they're not moving him. They've moved Jackson Merrill down in the order, a guy who has had a better rookie year last season. Jackson Merrill, sorry, I got to finish the pod with an Ariza rant. What do you guys want from me? Jackson Merrill last year, that one rookie season is better than any season Luis Ariz has literally ever had, just as a complete baseball player, right? And yet, he's rightfully so moved down in the order because he hasn't been very good this year. But Ariz, who's been very bad for a long time now and just hasn't been very good as a Padre overall, even post-thumb surgery, he keeps batting second. So again, I don't know, but if they ain't going to change Ariz, which is empirically hurting this team, then they're not going to change for Luis Campusano, which might be more theoretical than in practice. But we'll have to see, right? And I still have hope that the Padres can at least get something out of these guys to close out the year. So we'll have to see. But with that all being said, everybody, that about does it for today's edition of Locked Up Padres podcast, the only pod that may be better than the Padres themselves. Remember to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. Go check out the YouTube, leave some comments. I might hop back on Blue Sky at some point. If you guys want to reach out to me on there, at Javipedo, Javiipeno, but I am enjoying my social media hibernation. But whatever, leave your comments on this video or any video, and I will get to them for mailbag questions. And until next time, stay safe, and of course, stay faithful. My Friar Faithful homies, take care.